Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy.
Good evening and thanks for being with us today. I'm Maria Castaño. I'm project manager of the Global Forum on Technology of the OECD. We are pleased to welcome you to this event where the national quantum strategy will be presented. It will have the participation of several representatives of the ecosystem, of the Spanish ecosystem. Today's event is very much connected with the initiative that aims at giving a response to the technological challenges of our time. I'm referring to the Global Forum Technology of Tech, which is a platform that was created by the OEDC with the participation of Spain. It was born in the Canary Islands in 2022 in this forum organized by the OECD and with the presidency of Spain. The forum has been consolidated as a platform for bringing together experts, companies and the civil society with the purpose of reflecting on the impact of emerging technologies in our society. Our purpose is clear: fostering a global inclusive dialogue that is based on evidence, guiding the development of technology and its responsible use, consistent with democratic values and social welfare. On this line of action, we've intensified our tasks. We organized an event in 2023 named Future for Transformation with 200 participants from 50 countries, including some members of the Spanish quantum ecosystem. Through this event, we created a work group on quantum technologies with 50 national experts from 75 countries. Some of them are here with us. We also have we will have a focus group in the ministry tomorrow. The mission of this working group was to bring together evidence and best practices guiding the quantum governance. The OECD, as a result, launched a report named Quantum Technology Policy Planner, offering governments a solid base to understand the risks and opportunities of the technology and support its development in an ethical and sustainable way. It is one of the publications that with greatest degree of downloads in the OECD this year. Many of you know that we've organized an event that focused on the development of quantum technologies in a responsible way. It was organized by the OECD together with the government of Spain. With four main topics: the national quantum strategy. We had the privilege of listening to what we will hear in a minute. We also had an access and inclusion panel, talent development and supply chain panels. The discussions that we've had today created the perfect framework for starting the event that we are about to introduce. I want to take advantage of this opportunity to congratulate the Spanish government for their national strategy, reflecting the leadership, technological leadership of Spain in technology and responsible innovation. I want to express my gratitude on behalf of GFTech. Gratitude to the government of Spain and the Secretary of State for artificial intelligence. They gave us great visibility. Thanks very much. We would never have come this far without you. We hope this will be one of the many events that we will organize together. Thanks very much to the government of Spain. Thank you all for being here today.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Good evening. I would like to thank the Ministry for Digital Transformation, Civil Service, and the Ministry for Science, Innovation and Universities for organizing this event, this meeting about quantum dissemination. The UNESCO has just proclaimed 2025 as the International Year for Science and Quantum Technology. I feel a little bit embarrassed at being here talking about quantum technologies in front of experts. We have lots of people online following this event, and for this reason we welcome all of them. Talking about quantum physics is relevant today because it is a field that has yielded lots of results in science and technology, and also because we expect a lot more in computing, cybersecurity, sensors and materials, for example. And not only that, it is a field in which Spain has a great deal to contribute. Quantum physics, especially for those of us who are not involved in it, may sound exotic or complex, but in fact it has more than one century of history. This is why we are celebrating this year of science and quantum technology, because 100 years ago there was a publication of some articles which were very, very relevant in this field. Science, quantum science, describes with great accuracy the operation of the world at microscopic scale, the formation of the atoms, the molecules, materials. In sum, the way in which everything around us is created. It is a fundamental theory for understanding nature, and quantum physics has also been the foundation of great advancements. Around 30% of the technology that we use every day is estimated to derive directly or indirectly from quantum knowledge. The first quantum revolution took place in the second half of the 20th century. It made possible technologies like microchips, lasers, and modern telecommunications. Thanks to this revolution, we have computers today, mobile telephones, fiber optics networks, or the GPS that uses atomic clocks that allow us to know exactly where we are located with great accuracy. But there is great potential ahead to exploit, and in this century we've entered the second quantum revolution, focused not only on understanding the quantum phenomena but also on manipulating the quantum systems, and this opens the door to new applications like cybersecurity, advanced sensors, or the development of intelligent materials. However, this potential is accompanied by challenges and risks that are more or less significant. While a great deal of the theory describing these systems is well known, by its own definition, the quantum systems are very sensitive to their environment. So we need to take into account their control, reliability, and stability at practical level. The impact of the second quantum revolution in the world of scientific revolution is of great importance. It is now about with the most fundamental investigations about increasing its maturity and bringing this out of the environment of a research lab. This means that at the present point in time, what is being done in labs is difficult to bring out of those labs, and we need to make it into products that can be facilitated at global level. Some of these systems, specifically materials and cybersecurity, are already in the market, and there are use cases, as we will later see. Other aspects of quantum computing still need work to be done, because there are very, very big challenges. I don't know how long the journey will be, because things change every day. At financial level, we talk about high risk investments, high long maturity terms, and this limits the participation of the private sector. There is a risk of inflating expectations with a possible quantum bubble if the point of maturity of each technology is not communicated enough. There is also a challenge with talent. We need many more experts on certain quantum technologies, and therefore we need to attract more students to these careers. In other words, if you want a fascinating future for your children, talk to them about quantum and tell them how much it is needed. From a strategic perspective, quantum has amazing implications in areas such as defense or cybersecurity, and therefore its development has become a sovereignty, technological sovereignty aspects. There are only few persons controlling the development of these capacities, and this generates risks. aspects linked to privacy, equity in access, and ecological impact. These aspects are also included. In Europe, we have outstanding talent with a consistent scientific community, making Europe a quantum world power. Spain contributes to Europe being a power in this. Specifically in Spain, projects have been implemented, such as the complementary plan of quantum communications. Spain leads the PEP European initiative, including quantum chips, placing Spain on the global map of quantum. But one of the greatest challenges is transforming the knowledge into products that can reach the society. To this, we add the need to reinforce the technological autonomy of the continent versus other powers like the USA or China, with companies like IBM or Google capable of investing large amounts of money for these technologies. To solve these challenges, important initiatives in Europe have been put on the table, with projects in which Spain is playing a relevant role, as well as regional or national strategies in different countries, like in Germany or in the Netherlands. In this context, the Tecnologías Cuánticas strategy presented now is a decisive step, lays the foundation for articulating a solid ecosystem of collaboration between the public sector, the academia, and the industry, promoting innovation and technological leadership. So we will begin with the first roundtable that will focus on the Tecnologías Cuánticas strategy of Spain. In sectors such as quantum technologies, the role of the public sector is fundamental, especially for mitigating the risk that I explained, and also for fostering the strengths related to the Spanish quantum community, including existing and new companies, for example. With us is the Secretary of State for Digitalization and Artificial Intelligence, Maria González Veracruz, and the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Universities, Juan Cruz Cigudosa García. Thanks very much for taking the time to come here to explain to the society this strategy that you will be presenting today. I would like by starting with Maria. Could you explain how quantum technologies will improve people's lives? And then also, why is it that these types of technologies need a strategy? Thanks very much, Lydia. Well, thank you for having come, for accepting our invitation. Thank you all being here now, and all of you have been here since this morning. It would be difficult not to repeat our words at the same time as saying important things. Thanks to Chema, the Vice President of the SIC, and Teresa Riesgo. I could not salute the two of you, but you are key persons in what we are doing in the two ministries. I have the same feeling as you, Lydia. Explaining why quantum technology is important to such an audience is very difficult. I think one of the advantages of the journey that we are starting today with the introduction of this strategy is about making possible or having these participation spaces with the ecosystem. So the roundtables of this evening are going to be very relevant to explain the advantages of this technology for the society in financial terms, in terms of real growth, job generation, also in terms of social opportunities. I have some examples on my card, but I feel embarrassed to explain all of that to you. I think some of the data that are appear at the beginning of the strategy show that it is estimated that the global value of the market can reach $173 billion. I think this is enough to tell us about the financial part. In terms of social progress, I think that if we think about the application on health, the environment, if we think about how the application of quantum can generate, I see Madurell as well. There is such an extensive representation of the different sectors, the different groups. It's fantastic. I could give lots of examples, but you know those examples better than I do. Implementing the first national strategy aligned with that of the European Union, working with the regions, sends a clear message to the Spanish citizens. This is, well, we need to be pedagogical in this respect for the general public. The users of AI are much, much better known than the users of quantum technologies. So, talking about the impact of quantum technology, identifying promising molecules for future drugs, all these aspects are very positive. Of course, the environment is another aspect. Being able to detect the vibrations of earthquakes much, much earlier than are detected now with the classical sensors, warning the population with up to a 66% reduction of victims, with just a reduction of a few seconds, I think make this journey worthwhile. And of course, all the aspects of security, in which the work for privacy and confidentiality are key for more secure, or safer interventions. But I leave this to you. You can give us great examples for a good communication of this strategy, of all the path that we have ahead of us. Why this strategy? Well, because Spain is not beginning from scratch, from zero. There is a very good previous work, a clear commitment to research. I don't want to repeat all the programs that we mentioned earlier, because it is not my intention to look back on what has been done. We've mobilized 300 million euros, and this has been prioritized in the time of the Next Generation funds, with all the digital communications and quantum aspects, things that have not been done in other countries. We can now stop to see what new objectives we have that can bridge the gap between research and the new markets. This transfer of knowledge, giving support to quantum technology market in Spain, always taking into account the framework of the digital rights and everything that is opened up in the quantum world, working on a consistent, coordinated ecosystem that allows us to generate synergies and leverage all the capabilities with the financing opportunities that we have marked and the ones that might come in the future. We were dwelling on the fact that this is a starting point that will be extended, will grow in line with the European Union, with the financing opportunities that might come up, but truly we thought this was an important point, and Spain could not really lag behind in this strategy that had been looked at a long time ago, and I believe this positioned us in a very good place throughout the day. I've been receiving congratulatory words. I think the people like you play a role in disseminating information to get closer to the Spanish society with these new technologies.
And I won't stop to talk about the 7 priorities now. I think you already know them. They're very visual, so we've just tried to prioritize on the new investments with the recovery funds. And we've tried to focus on quantum communication and the different measurements, what we think we need to achieve those big goals that we set. We think that with this 800 million euro that we have, additionally, we'll have enough to mobilize also some private investment that will make it possible for us to have a stronger position in a few years as a country. And I want to insist on how important it has been to listening to you all. But as the government, we are humble, but we are also convinced that we have a lot of things we can do together. It's sometimes difficult to put all this together, but one of the big skills of this country is that we all want our skill to be the one that is mostly identified in the strategy. But I would say that at the point where we are now, we all have a lot to win, and we count on you, on all of you, to continue working on this strategy so it becomes something bigger and stronger with this forum and with many others that will come about quantum computing with different actors in communication, in sensor technologies. And I wandered away from the question, but I see them all and I really want to address them all. Juan, if you had to explain what quantum revolution means to a regular citizen, this second revolution, how would you explain that? And do you know that it's possible without the public sector? Thank you very much. Thank you as well for the collaboration of everybody who contributed to this event, and also to the audience. It's amazing to see the interest in these matters. How would you explain the difference between the first and the second quantum revolutions? Well, I'm gonna actually tell you how I explain that to myself, because we all reflect about, well, I've gone through a scientific revolution throughout my career, right? Well, I think that what's happening now is that in this second revolution, we are seeing that it goes at a quantum speed, actually, because changes don't happen at a regular pace. The growth is exponential. The capacity to integrate everything that's going on comes at an effort that we were not capable of some time ago. So essentially, the application field is going to change. It's going to change a lot. So people are going to see a very different perspective. But we are not going to create a bubble. There's no need to create a bubble. But we also lived the change from 5G to 6G, when we have to explain that, and we don't have tools that make it easy. So my answer would be the first quantum revolution had to do with the theoretical integration of what we were chasing as a reality, and the second revolution we're going through now has a different speed, and it affects the society as a whole much more. And the second question is, what are we doing about it as a country? Well, it's not the moment to talk about the Manhattan Project with everything that's going on in the US, but we need to be aware that the government needs to assume some roles that are not so obvious in Europe. The government needs to take some risks if we want to be the avant-garde of all these scientific revolution. If we want for this science to have an impact on the society, we need to be a part of the society. So we need to be aware that we need to take some risks, and probably among the investments that we commit to, the initiatives that we carry out, some of them are going to fail, but we don't have to torture ourselves about that. Then, for example, in the pharmaceutical area, we, for the first time, we have a private-public association going on, and it's very exciting. Of course, we have concerns, but we have to do it. Then, secondly, we need to accompany. I agree with Maria. We're not going to insist on the priorities, but the government, the state, needs to accompany that strategy because of two different reasons. Digital sovereignty. We have the ability to lead in something that's very important for the future of humanity. Europe has the intellectual capacity to do this. And also because it's a matter of economic security. We cannot let all this run away from us. I think that this is critical. These two aspects are really critical right now. I also think that we are not beginning from scratch, like Maria said. We also said it this morning. Many people here have been working on this for a long time, but we want to reinforce that. I think it's also mentioned among those priorities. We still need more infrastructures. We talked about talent this morning. I think it's important that for the talent moves around. We need to attract talent, but we need to have the tools to attract that talent. We're doing it. I think that the strategy is quite ambitious in that sense. We are reinforcing and enhancing our infrastructures. We're going to invest money in quantum technologies labs. And I also want to say, coming from the other side of political management, it's true that policymakers are never satisfied. So we need to manage what we have. That's already a lot. We're going to make an effort with 15 million euros in those gray areas where legislation is difficult, is complex. Also, we want to focus on some spin-offs. We had an event last week in Barcelona about spin-offs in quantum technologies. It was amazing. And we need for this adventure to be not too fragmented. We need to include the civil society, we need to include spin-offs, big ones, smaller ones, we need to include the autonomous communities, we need to include universities, because in each sector we have a different niche. So we need to harmonize all that. It sounds easy, right? Yeah, very easy. This brings me to the next question. Probably you can answer this question, Maria. Juan said that there's a lot going on in Spain already, and we can see that here today. We have many people in the room today who have been working for a long time. But are there any sectors that are playing a relevant role, that are especially remarkable? Well, I think that I cannot see Maria right now. I wanted to thank the OECD for hosting this event, for facilitating all this today. I think we need to be ready. We are ready, but we can be readier. We have many leading companies. We have different innovation clusters throughout the territory. For example, in Catalonia or Biquanium in Vizcaya. But I don't want to leave anybody behind, so I'm not going to mention names or mention different locations. What I do want to focus on is the fact that we made a huge bet in quantum technology some weeks or months ago. I lose track. We were visiting the different centers, and I think that has been some relevant work. We've improved communications in quantum strategies. The quantum strategy comes together with a royal decree already, with a very important sum of money allocated to it. And we are convinced that we have a great opportunity ahead, like what you were saying with your previous question, with sensor technologies. You have everything included in the strategy. I encourage you to have a look at it. We're going to invest 7 million euros in quantum clocks together with them and with the ROA. And I think these are some specific examples, but we are mobilizing a lot. We have many different use cases. We opened also a public consultation to be accurate with the sector when defining the priorities, but we also need to be open-minded. We need to have that public innovation capacity so we can invest in whatever we identify that we need to invest in. So it's important to have that private-public commitment. And I do want to mention the THET. We have 300 million, more than 300. No, sorry, I'm confused about 600. It's actually 600 million euros. 400 million euros for quantum companies and 200 million focused on other areas where we can co-invest or collaborate. It's another funding line. It's a different formula, but it's also very important, which is how we will get to mobilize 1,500 million euros in total. It's in our hands. I mean, that's what's really exciting about these. If we get that quantum communication hub to be a real hub and we are able to create skills, well, we need to do it exponentially at quantum pace, as Juan was saying. So if you weren't here this morning, you didn't hear the two ministers, well, it's important to insist on how open this all needs to be. Sorry about my microphone. We need to be right when we identify the needs, the priorities, and well, we offer you our hand. We are here to listen to you, and I'm sure you will be able to see that by yourselves. Also together with the autonomous communities, I think what we want to do is impossible to achieve without them. There are some autonomous communities which are a reference already: Catalonia, the Basque Country, Madrid, but the FEDER funds make it possible to be more present in the different territories. Well, and this brings me to the next question for Juan Cruz. We start talking about investments and, well, where do we want to get? And in the future, will we have a quantum computer at home? Well, thinking about where we're coming from, sometimes we torture ourselves about our background. This is not something new that is coming up from both ministries. We are just reacting to a very profound change trend that was there. And I'm going to give some figures because we need to have the global image. We had already invested 300 million euros in our country with different applications, developing and implementing quantum technologies in the country. It's a big effort. We believe that the government needs to do it as a social responsibility. New technologies bring new responsibilities, as Maria was saying this morning, and new powers bring new responsibilities as well. So we need to be involved, engaged in all these. See the figures here, these 808 million euros, together with the ones I mentioned before. This is a direct investment injection, and that together with the private investment that we can get, we're talking about around 1,800 million euros. In France, for example, in Europe, they have a similar amount. In Canada, we're talking about 1,400. million. This is the Champions League in quantum technologies. We have to believe that we are there in the Champions League. And I'm also going to mention some things I don't know that if you're aware of. In the Supercomputing Center in Barcelona, we already allocated 22 million euros for a quantum computer, 8.5 million euros for the HSBC tool, 7 million in Asturias. We've also launched a supplementary plan for quantum communication. It was very successful. And this is one of the plans we are very proud of, with the collaboration of the autonomous communities. It's important that we understand that these kind of plans are here to transform the context, and they are being very successful, because the knowledge is there, but now we need to transfer that knowledge. And specifically about the old national plan, talent management, we also have 50 million in projects, 50 million in talent. This strategy is being implemented by the autonomous communities. We need to be aware of that. I've visited all the territory, and we are mobilizing a big amount of money. So this is the two ministries that are working on this, but we don't want to be the only ones. We are a reference for the government, yes, but we also invested more than 110 million euros, 46 million euros in investment in companies related to these technologies. And as a country, we've decided that 1/4 of the Recovery and Resiliency Plan has been allocated to activities that we coordinate, Maria and I. That's a political decision. Nobody told us where we had to allocate the money that was coming from Europe. 1 out of 5 job positions created in our country are technological jobs. And that's something that had never happened before in Spain, so we need to be aware of that. We have a supercomputing network in Spain that has been working throughout the territory. 600,000 million euros has been the last money injection, and I think that that's very important, so the process can continue. And with all these figures, to answer your question about am I going to have a quantum computer at home, I think the answer is no, but I mean, you never know. But that's not what we are expecting right now. I think that the more we know about quantum technology, for me, for example, we need to make a big effort to mitigate errors. So we're talking about that kind of technology, so I don't think that this is something that's going to become a laptop, okay? But there are things that are going to happen in communications, in sensor technologies, and that's happening actually already. We're not going to have a quantum computer at home because they are going to be for specific projects, but I see hybrid computers, for example. Thank you very much to both of you for your time and for explaining all these details about the strategy to all of us. Thank you very much.
Bueno, pasamos ahora a la segunda mesa de...
We move on to the second panel in this session, talking about the challenges and risks of these quantum technologies. In the last few years, international competitiveness has changed a lot, and towards the European quantum flagship, we've had different projects, and it's contributed to the creation of the European quantum ecosystem. It sounds like something that is not so important, but this strength of the European ecosystem is one of the leading factors. So to share these in a successful way, We need the work of the European Commission and the coordination with Spain and the European Union. We may find different inequalities in the system, or also the impact of factors as security. So we need to develop all these technologies protecting individual rights and the community well-being. Looking ahead, probably these quantum technologies will be a very important growth engine in strategic sectors. This growth is going to come with the creation of new jobs, and there are some researchers that show that employment is going to grow in this sector. So we need to upskill and improve the skills of the workforce in this sector. So we need the commitment of the whole society. This is essential to maintain public investment and attract and retain talent, as well as guaranteeing the quality of new products and emerging services. This is important for the market and to get to have more companies in the sector. But for all these, we need a scientific culture that is shared and common. These objectives are difficult to attain, so the government needs to have tools to differentiate the different quantum technologies. In the different commercial applications of quantum technologies. So we need to know when we are using quantum finish, we are actually not talking about, we're not putting quantum technologies in the dishwasher. So this is why events like the one here today are important, so we can bring quantum technologies closer to society. We need also quantum literacy, so the society can understand this without creating false expectations. That's why the scientific community plays an essential role. And to talk about all these, we have the second panel today with the moderator, who is a representative of the Quantum Technology Working Group in AMETIC. Thank you very much. You don't know how exciting it is for me today to be here today, because many of you have seen us. We've been knocking on different doors. I work in Brussels, and you offer services to all the countries, but, well, always your hometown is special, and you always try to think, well, Spain needs these. We've gone through different stages, but I know that many of you know me because I've been there knocking on your doors, and I have to thank the Secretaries of State, Teresa, I'm gonna forget many names probably, but thank you, really thank you to all of you, and I'm really happy to be here with you all. How did we get here? I want to give you a brief introduction about how I would like to explain that. The European strategy and the Spanish strategy needs to be coordinated. It needs to be coordinated with the European one. A few years ago, this was something that researchers were working on, only researchers, but in 2018, the quantum flagship was implemented, and it came from all the scientists that were working on it. And that's when we said, you already have the Spanish ecosystem. It's created already, it's coordinated. And I'm sure that many of you who are here know me because I was sending tons of emails. Sometimes people don't answer those emails. But in quantum technologies, in quantum flagship, people answer those emails. And so that's something I'm thankful for. So take advantage of that, because that's not so common in other areas. And in quantum technologies, we have that. People get back to you by email. And one of the successes in the quantum flagships has been good governance. Strategic documents have been good, have been efficient. And what a few years ago was science, it became industrial policies, infrastructures for citizens, investment, and these all impacts citizens in the end. So it sounded like science fiction, but in the end it impacts the economy, education, and, well, at the end of the day, getting a better country for all of us. And after saying this, I would like to invite the panelists we have with us today: Tomás de la Cuadra Salcedo and Fernández del Castillo, Professor of Administrative Law in Carlos III University, ex-Minister of Justice, and ex-President of the Council of State. It's a big pleasure to have him here. Beatriz Arias, Director of Digital Transformation in Digitalies, an expert in digital transformation. And Raquel Jorge Ricard, Director for European Affairs and Brussels Office in the Digital Office, researcher in the Elcano Royal Institute. Thank you very much to all of you. I'm gonna begin with our questions. Tomás, you've coordinated, among many other things throughout your life, the expert group for drafting the digital rights chart. We've shared many interesting discussions preparing this panel, and I've learned a lot. And some of the things I learned is that you were the first person that carried out the first data legislation in Spain, right? So one of the things that we saw is how quantum technologies open a new paradigm in everything related to legislation. And so I would like you to explain some of these interesting aspects to the audience here today. Thank you very much. Well, first about this strategy, the fifth priority that refers to privacy and confidentiality. I think it's important to highlight this because that connects in a direct way to the digital rights chart that was signed in July 2021. And it's also linked to any kind of technology, because it's foreseen how all these technologies need to be, in all these technologies, data need to be linked to digital rights. And that's also connected to the first article in the legislation for artificial intelligence, which is highly related to quantum technologies. Why? Well, because that regulation in the first article, which concerns the market of the artificial intelligence, it includes a reflection about guaranteeing those rights, having the human being at the center of all these. And it also talks about democracy and about boosting innovation. It may sound as a contradiction, but it's not, because all these technologies have individuals at the center of the strategy. If we want that trust, we need to have that reference. So if we begin with this priority, number 5, that makes reference to privacy and confidentiality, it shows how important these matters are. And this connects to the Lisbon agreement. where we had to focus, to have the human being, to have individuals at the center of the strategy. In quantum technologies and in some of the applications that we've seen that are more immediate, such as sensor technologies, or they are dealt with in the digital rights chart, and also in the statement about digital rights and principles from January 2024. And sensor technologies are important, and also applications to cybersecurity in quantum computing and in quantum technologies. Those are going to bring risks for the cybersecurity systems that we have, and also for traditional conventional computing. So this measure includes cybersecurity, post-quantum cybersecurity systems that may bring the protection of these rights. So in the strategy, in the priority, privacy and confidentiality are measured, but it's not only referred to individual rights, it's also the rights of the democracy, the market as a whole, the whole system. So that's the most important connection. That cyber security that may be challenged by quantum technologies, we see how technology offers the solution with post-quantum applications. So, for example, the obsolescence of these technologies actually brings a solution to the problems that are raised.
Artificial.
And let me go back on artificial intelligence that is very connected to sensing technology, in as much as sensing technology can give us very sensitive information, both from a perspective of individual persons and from a point of view of defense or cybersecurity. Therefore, these two topics are very interlinked, or not very much linked, to artificial intelligence. If we do not link this with artificial intelligence, we lose sight of the reality. Artificial intelligence already exists in classical computing, but quantum technologies give it an infinite development. All this has to do with privacy, and I want to go back on the idea of confidentiality, because privacy refers to the person, and here we're talking about the fundamental rights of persons, and this is important, but confidentiality may go beyond the person. It may affect the institutions, the systems, defense, security systems. There are confidential things in all that, and from this point of view we are also talking about the guarantee of fundamental rights, but not only that, but also democracy and the market. And what is the answer? What does the society have to do? And what does the law have to do, taking into account the great advantages presented by quantum technologies? What answers can be given? One characteristic thing that we see is that, to begin with, the classical world of law, in the classical world of law, persons face their problems individually. They went to court, to the judges, for them to resolve their problems. But what is happening with the new technologies? It is no longer the person, the individual person, that goes to the courts to defend themselves. There are institutions, national institutions, the Data Protection Agency of Spain, for example. One can go there and say, this is happening to me. So it is the society that understands that persons are helpless. They can no longer defend themselves by going to a lawyer. This lawyer may not know about the technical difficulties underlying the problem. there is a need for an institution, an individual defender of people taking over the representation of those persons. This is a characteristic of the response of a society of law when faced with these new technologies. The second answer is we do not wait until the problem, the damaging of the rights has occurred. We anticipate to that in the design phase. In the research phase, there is already this human perspective. So from the design, from the research, there is already the concern about the possible consequences on the rights of persons individually. And therefore, since this has an expansive strength, systemic strength, how does it affect? We take care of how it affects the society as a whole. So these are two features of the new law with the new technologies. And the third characteristic is the fact that in the traditional rules, one kills another and they will be punished with sanction, whatever. No, the problem here is that we need to resort to technologies that are difficult to understand. The law and the rules cannot cover all the possibilities. Like in the classical A plus B gives C. It's like the classical syllogism. But in this case, we need to resort to some unpredictable formulae to give us solutions, and then we need experts. So the law is constantly reviewing the technique or the technology, and it needs experts, groups that are independent but at the same time belong to the state, because the state needs institutions that are made up by experts, controlled by the courts, guaranteeing that it is not about applying a more or less simple rule, but it is about the need to have technical scientific knowledge only in light of the specific situation they give a response. So this is what we would need to deal with. Perfect. Thanks very much, Professor. Let's move on to the question to Beatriz Arias. When we were preparing our intervention, we knew that you have extensive experience as company managers. You're an expert on the internal dynamics in companies. One of the things that have been identified in the quantum technology market, there are many, but summarizing everything, I'd like to ask, what assets do we have that allow us to position Spain as a competitive country in these technologies? What can you tell us from your experience, both at your association and based on your previous experience managing companies? Thanks very much for the question, first of all, because it allows me to change the narrative that we hear about emerging technologies and the threats that they entail. We need to talk more about the opportunities, the real opportunities. I'd like to begin from the basics. Can you hear me? What do we have in Spain that is a fundamental asset for all this that we are discussing? Connectivity. We are in a country that has been acknowledged by the OECD as connectivity leader in Europe, thanks to public investment policies that have been effective and that allowed us to be the first ones to deploy optical fiber technologies. This is the ULPs were considered as relevant in quantum projects. The feasibility of this is still being debated in the scientific community, but we will make it commercial, and there are possibilities. And this facilitates the transition, the efficient transition towards more secure, more advanced networks. As part of this, we can say that in a pre-commercial, pre-marketed network, Telefónica is already testing this quantum connectors network. So I like to talk about these opportunities that are already being realized as we speak. And this allows me to link with what we do from Digitales, digital. We're working on a strategic plan to develop the quantum radar. This allows us to connect private and public efforts aimed at this technological autonomy that we advocate. And it is based through, by means of alliances with all the necessary agents. And this has to do with inclusion, open multilateralism. All these are part of the work that we are doing. And we are focusing on 3 pillars: dissemination, pedagogy. Those are the first aspects. We are at a very early stage of the technology. The conversation is dominated by artificial intelligence. It is this pedagogy is very important to avoid all these dystopic noises that produce disinformation. We are talking about technologies that are strategic, like quantum technology, and they position us on a very competitive level. We're working on the development of skills. We heard about this today for the medium and long term in the quantum world. The Bitcoin hub was mentioned. Telefónica is one of our partners. It has been granted a project, and it is developing this type of innovation ecosystem for the development of these skills. As part of this quantum radar plan, we are also creating value as an industry by means of all the know-how that we have with our partners, with big companies like IBM, pioneer in the development of a general use supercomputer. It is interesting to mention it. It's about to celebrate 100 years of existence. Fujitsu leading development of quantum software. The emulation of this software is important for moving forward. I can talk about very specific opportunities like the eSIM Quantum Safe, which is an eSIM card with resilient cryptography capabilities focused on specific design for IoT devices. This is a solution developed by Telefónica in gas meters, water meters, protecting critical infrastructures against mass attacks. Fujitsu is working with Nueva Pescanova, the aquaculture industry of Spain, allowing with quantum solutions plus AI, allowing to reduce the costs and the CO2 emissions by up to 30%. With additional opportunities, we also have in our network entity Data Capgemini. They have quantum computing labs, and they already offer this access for their clients in end-to-end solutions. I'd like to flex my muscles for connectivity. We were capable of deploying up to 85% penetration. We did it. We are ready. It is a matter of scaling by means of our initiatives. We are short of time, but my next question is for Raquel Jorge. One of the problems that we've identified was the problem of scalability We move from lab to fab, creating startups, or lab to startups. Then there is the aspect of scaling up, and things get more complicated. Can you tell us about how to promote scalability in these companies? Yes, one of the models in the development of quantum technologies is not anymore just this first phase of development and design of the process from lab to fab. The next challenge that I think would be the next border to competitiveness would be promoting the possibility that Spain's operating in Spain can be competitive by scaling. What do we mean by scaling? Last year, Digital, together with Bolsas y Mercados of Spain, and with the support of ISEX and the Ministry of Economy, we proposed a national scalability plan, including how to promote that for companies in critical, growing critical technologies like quantum technologies. How can they grow to become the companies of the future, companies accompanied by the large corporations existing in Spain? There are three means for this. Firstly, the increase and diversification of the public institutional investors. The SEP is one case, but the NETI is another example, or the increase and diversification of funds by the European Investment Bank. Very recently, it listed quantum technologies as an element of this plan for rearmament in defense, things that are very much aligned with the National Technology and Security Plan. This is the first recommendation. The second one, regarding scalability, comes more from the private sector. It is necessary for emerging companies and startups, the companies with annual growth for 3 consecutive years higher than 20%, so scale-ups rather than startups. It is necessary for them to be integrated in different co-investment mechanisms. Even in the Spanish stock market, as a way of receiving capital in Spain, thus growing in the Spanish capital market and European market. And the third means is greater debate between large corporations and small companies. Very often they are at the forefront of the development, spearheading some quantum applications. A classical example that I have talked about in our colleagues in technological centers in Spain is a case of quantum sensing, which is very well reflected in this strategy of Spain. Currently, quantum computing has a very extensive field of action, but there are other aspects like sensing technology or quantum technology, for which there are centers, institutions in Spain, large companies that are developing these starting phases of the impact that is present in these strategies. So we need to foster this triple support: public investors, more private investment as well, because we need to support these strategies with a country view. It is proposed with tangible projects in Digital. And thirdly, this discussion with the capitals market, investment or savings market of Spain. I would like to refer to what Juan Cruz, the Secretary of State, said. We need to run risks, and this is a fundamental element, because quantum technologies require a high level of capital. They require a high level of patient capital that can be facilitated by the state and can also be facilitated by private investors that understand the general interest purpose of the development of these technologies. This is why very specific cases that we have been proposing include capturing the eligibility criteria in order to include smaller companies that are emerging and that develop technologies such as quantum technologies that are very avant-garde. technologies, very cutting edge. Perfect, thanks very much. Big round of applause for the speakers. We could stay here speaking for a longer time, but we have a program to cover, so we need to rush. Thanks very much, Enrique. Thanks to all the speakers. We have very short time, so we need to move to the last round table that will focus on the current ecosystem of Spain. For this purpose, we have a panel moderated by Carlos Kuczowski, CEO and co-founder of QCentroid, also member of the advisory group on quantum technologies of the European Commission. I say goodbye to all of you. If you have understood the message that quantum technology is important, it is here to stay, and big things are being done in Spain, then we have succeeded in our purpose with this event.
La presentación. Buenas tardes a todos. Para mí es un privilegio.
Good evening. It is a privilege for me to be here with a double hat representing QCentroid and also introducing the representatives of AMETIC Quantum Technology Working Group. I'm representing Alfonso, who had some health issues and could not come. So thanks and congratulations, Alfonso. We've seen today that the strategy is a step to reinforce the efforts made by the public institutions in their cooperation also with the private institutions to position Spain as one of the key international stakeholders in leading the revolution of these technologies. There has been a big research effort and new ways, new paths have been opened. But this research effort needs to be applicable in the real economy of a country. Spain has created a structure in the last years that allowed it to be positioned as a leader, adoption, development and integration of real use cases to be applied to the industries. The quantum technologies can be divided into three areas: communications, sensing and computing, in order to respond to how we can communicate in a safe way, how we can measure nature in a precise way, and how we can resolve problems in an unthinkable way. It is a privilege to introduce the members of the next panel. We will be seeing use cases with real objectives that can be applied to the industry, communication sector, among others. I wish to introduce Esther Villar, Head of Quantum Technologies of Tecnalia. Esther. Esther, it is a privilege to have you here. Can you tell us how you are dealing with communication sensing in Tecnalia as a research center that is relevant nationally and internationally? Well, Tecnalia has been participating in very relevant research projects. We've been exploring lots of technologies. Communication, computing, and then the sensing part. Well, the commitment has to do with computing and sensing. And as for case uses in sensing, well, we've set up a lab. Truly in computing, we are much more at a stage on the software layer. Specifically for hybridation, there's a lot to do in hybridation. We heard about how one of the pillars is the concept of convergence between AI and quantum physics, quantum technology. There's a great deal to be done. There is a lot to do in terms of learning, transformation learning. A lot needs to be done in a coordinated way. We've opened up a lab. We are now manufacturing from the lowest hardware level with manufacturing diamond sensors for vacant hydrogen. We are fighting for sovereignty. I think we're trying to see if we can do something relevant in the country. We are working on diamond. We are having use cases. Spain has great capabilities in this area where the leadership is not so clear internationally. Making a commitment with it is very successful. One of the cases in which we are working now is with SEAT Tecnobit. We are preparing a proof of concept for a magnetometer based on fiber. Allows for the heaviest part of the device to be separated from the sensor concept of the diamond, and then we can bring the head of the sensor to any type of sample. The next step will obviously be the magnetic degradation with an accuracy of 10 meters, not like GPS, but it opens up an amazing range of applications because we will not be needing a satellite for locating. The quantum system is very well known to the audience. You gave the example of a magnetometer in say, navigation and sailing, and then other use cases in computation. Maybe can you give some use cases for people to understand what is good for? Well, in sensing, we are leading a European project, PROMISE. There are many use cases from sensing quantum methodology. One is from the study of melanoma cells in order to understand the process, the internal process, the growth of those cells. With the use of a magnetometer. One of the very relevant case has to do with the analysis of the provenance of materials, wood in this case, to find out, if the wood comes from where they tell us it comes from. We can analyze the isotopes of the wood, seeing where the material comes from. And for computing, we have a great track record regarding the logistics sector. We've conducted lots of work from the management of warehouse internally, picking and delivery with time, windows, heterogeneous fleets, complex projects for which we need hybrid systems because quantum computing is not there to tackle these types of big projects. And then the loading of containers, maritime or sea containers, trucks with gravity centers, prioritization for the layers of packages, unifying containers. We have over 12 use cases. It is interesting to understand the capacity that quantum gives. Thanks very much, Esther. I'd like to bring in Víctor Gaspar, Head of Development, Business Development in Multiverse, prospective unicorn. Can you tell us how you are applying, in your case, in Multiverse, quantum technology for real cases? Thanks very much. This is not an ecosystem. It is a company of friends, long-standing friends. It's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you. It is a company that aims at giving value to clients. We might have quantum computers in a few years' time. We know that there is limitations in the hardware. Since the beginning of the company, we are proposing the development of algorithms, quantum algorithms, algorithms of quantum inspiration, algorithms that are inspired on the operation of quantum technology, but they run on classical software, CPUs. It's like artificial neural networks. Everybody knows them. They're well inspired. They're inspired on the functioning of our brain. but we do not need a brain for running artificial neural networks. So the quantum inspired techniques have the same ideas. They run on CPUs in this case. So this allows us today to resolve practical real-life problems. We don't need to wait for this quantum supercomputer. We can resolve clients' problems today, at the same time experimenting with the technology that we hope will be revolutionary in the future.
I think it's quite relevant, and I think it's also one of the biggest challenges for our society, how powerful artificial intelligence is with the models, the generative models that we have nowadays. Can you tell us about how you are applying that part of quantum technologies? As you know, in the last few years, artificial intelligence has grown exponentially. The networks are measured in the number of parameters in the networks. In the 60s, these techniques were born. Our director says these are prehistoric techniques already. And from the algorithm point of view, we've developed this a lot. And this is what enabled for this exponential growth. And what's behind all that? The hardware. The hardware that has been used, the CPUs that have been used to train these neuronal networks. That's what made it possible for us to have that exponential growth. That's what we needed. Also, the memory that has grown exponentially. A very strategic project is a set of companies that are controlling most of production at a global level. What we do is, what we suggested, we need to use those sensing networks to reduce the size of neuronal networks. We use a kind of technology that reduces the size in 80%, for example. So we keep 20% of the neuronal network, the neural network, the original neural network, but without losing any accuracy. So that's scaling up the technology, getting a bigger output, and reducing costs. So that's another case that has a big impact. Now I introduce our next panelists, Enrique Crespo from GMV. National and international company. As a technology company, you work with different industries. You work in defense, with the public sector, and you also have a lot of collaboration with the private sector. How are you applying from GMV these technologies with a real impact? Well, I would like to start by saying that GMV started being a company with 7 people. And I say this because today here we have a big Spanish quantum technology ecosystem. And answering your question, with a maximum commitment to innovation and with different techniques that can provide a disruptive competitive advantage. In GMV is a company where now we are more than 3,500 people, but it started as an SME. And we develop quantum technologies in at least 3 sectors, which are quite mature, so they are attractive for the market. 2 or 3 years ago, it sounds like not so much, but it's a long ago, really. We started working with scientific communities and different financial entities in the country. We've been developing the COOP project, which shows real problems, and we try to assess whether quantum technology.
En 3 años, pues los modelos de acceso a estas plataformas serán completamente distintas de las que tenemos ahora.
I don't know if these technologies are different from what we have now, but the conclusions are that a quantum computer is far from being competitive in many of the problems to which we need solutions right now. But it's true that we can also think of hybrid solutions. The kind of solutions that we've been working on in supercomputing centers in Spain. This is an aspect where GMV has been developing different techniques in the space industry. For example, we've developed different cases. We're used to seeing these in movies, right? They tell you, well, look here, and they just take a picture, but sending a picture from a satellite is something quite complex, really, in real life. So these quantum solutions are very useful for this kind of challenge. And we are also focusing on different use cases, applying quantum technologies, for example, anticipating situations and optimizing data in real time. And this justifies all the efforts and investments that we are having in sensing technology. For example, the PNT quantum clocks that we've been developing, are essential for the integration of different technologies in flight technologies. But it's also true that, well, some prototypes may work, but a different thing is for us to be able to measure that and really assess it and for it to have an impact in real flights. That's a different thing. But the developments are very promising. And finally, with the focus that we have at GMV, there is an extraordinary formula in Spain which is based in innovation, and we are developing key management systems with artificial intelligence, so we can optimize communication systems that need to be more efficient. So it's some kind of magical infrastructure. And that's basically what I could tell you about how we are applying quantum technologies. Thank you very much, Enrique. These are very complex issues, but it's always nice to see the real application. And now, finally, I also want to introduce Juan Cambeiro, Customer Innovation in Telefónica, who is also a great... Telefónica is also a great example of how a big company is working with quantum technologies. How are you adopting quantum technologies in Telefónica? Well, it's a pleasure, and I want to thank you for having Telefónica here today. And I also want to thank you and congratulate you for being here for the whole day. I'm the last panelist in the last panel after the whole day. So thank you very much for staying here with us. Telefónica is doing a lot of things with quantum technologies. I have colleagues here who have been working with quantum technologies when it was just an R&D project, and now we're already working with some of our clients. Actually, this year we created the Excellency Center for Quantum Technologies to give consistency to all these initiatives, so we can share also all these best practices with the different actors, and to guarantee the presence of quantum technologies in Spain and in Europe. What is Telefónica doing in quantum technologies? Well, we're doing essentially two things. First, the one where I'm involved personally is Telefónica Quantum Safe initiative, which aims at guaranteeing the security of our networks, which is something that is a concern among our clients. They've been telling us about this from 2020, so it's something that has been there for a while. How do we do this? We do this in the systems where we have cryptography that has been considered vulnerable against quantum technology. So we are trying to define new standards following the recommendations coming from the Cryptography National Center. And we work against those threats. And then we also work with key quantum technologies. When two buildings, for example, want to make communication between them safe, we help them to create keys, codes that cannot be intercepted by third parties. So the communication is safe. So cryptography and key initiatives like this. We make these communications secure between Vitas, Arturo Soria, and Vitas. We collaborate with companies like Luz Quanta or the Polytechnic University in Madrid. We also talk about startups, universities, where we can find Spanish talent. So we have Telefónica Quantum Safe, and then on the other hand, we work in promoting quantum technologies talent in Spain. Telefónica has been the first company authorized by Fujitsu to distribute their quantum-inspired technology, quantum-inspired computer. We've done that with together with ICAI, where we will have a Fujitsu Niller in a data center from Telefónica, which will be available for companies, startups, and universities that are part of the hub, so they can get familiar with the technology and they can use it in favor of the industry and in the sector. So we can promote quantum skills in Spain, which I think it's something that is going to be a great advantage for everybody. So answering to your question, well, we work for security in the communications and promote quantum technology so we can all take advantage of these use cases. Thank you, Juan. We have 4 more minutes for one last quick question. I'm very proud to be here today to have these big companies, avant-garde research centers in our country that show the work we're doing in Spain. So just a very brief intervention from each of you. What would you tell the people who are watching? How can they begin working in quantum technologies with us and with all the ecosystem that we've been describing today? Well, in just 30 seconds, the first thing I would say is that our lab is open for any of you who want to visit, if you want to understand how quantum sensing technology works. And actually, the opportunities for working with these now is creating prototypes and trying for these technologies to get more mature. Our goal is to transfer all that knowledge and apply that in the society. So we want people to bring real use cases. And it's true that on our own we cannot get very far, but well, just knock on our door, come visit us, and we're here available for you. Thank you. Well, this morning we were in Avantia event, and the person in charge of sustainability, he used a sentence. He said, the best moment to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best moment to plant a tree is right now, right? So it's true that 20 years ago we could have already started working in quantum technologies, but well, if we haven't done that, we can start doing it now. It's great to have public investment, but if there's no client willing to buy that afterwards, there's no sense. Thank you, Enrique. Well, that's a very difficult question. These projects are multidisciplinary projects. They are complex projects, so maybe we need a map of who is who in the ecosystem, so we can know who we need to contact depending on what we need in the industry, because we are competing in a market. Actually, at the end of the day, it's competitiveness, and we need to find the right synergies. Thank you. And Juan, well, I would just say that after 20 years working in innovation, if there's something clear for me, is no one can innovate on his own. It's always the collaboration between companies. Startups are a key element, and we are open to collaborate with any company that wants to investigate and to learn more about these quantum technologies. We've been doing it for years, so count on Telefónica or any other companies that are present here to lead projects that can help develop the quantum ecosystem in Spain. Thank you very much, Juan. It's great to see how we have all this capacity in Spain, but we also have that responsibility. So this is a call for all those of you here and people watching us. We need to implement that strategy from here to 2030, so we can feel very proud in the future about all this work and how we are working in quantum technologies and exporting them to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.